Hello ladies and gentlemen, Riley Flynn with Good Cookie here again with another video, and this is going to be a much needed review of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. It's been a few decades since the Empire fell in Return of the Jedi, and everything's going all hunky-dory. There's a new Republic keeping order in the galaxy. Luke Skywalker decides to raise some Jedi, replace them after they were slaughtered. Things don't go as planned. One of his students ends up slaughtering everybody. Luke's like, screw this, I'm out, and then he leaves. And now it's up to the First Order, which is the remnants of the Galactic Empire, and the Resistance, which is the new version of the Rebels, to find the location of where Luke is now hiding. That's essentially the plot. There's a bunch of various other stuff. You have Finn, who's a stormtrooper who decides to go rogue, and Rey, who is again another person who just lives on a desert-like planet, similar to A New Hope. So basically it's two sides trying to find the location of Luke Skywalker. Why? Because, well, he's a powerful guy, yet you wouldn't technically have to worry about him because he chose to isolate himself, so you don't really have to take care of him because it's not going to bother you. You're trying to find him, but nonetheless, that's the plot, essentially. Luke Skywalker is powerful, so they both need to find where he is to either use him to help defeat the First Order or to destroy him, so he can't help the Resistance. The Force Awakens features some pretty awesome characters. There are the characters from the original trilogy who have made a return, such as Chewbacca, who is pretty humorous in this movie, Han Solo, who just went back to his smuggler ways, Princess Leia, C-3PO, and R2-D2. And they're all pretty reminiscent of their characters in the original trilogy. Of course, there's a cameo at the very end of this movie, but it's a pretty small role, and I don't want to spoil it in case you somehow haven't watched this movie yet. And of course, there are some new characters. Poe Dameron, who is a sarcastic fighter pilot in the Resistance, who I wish was in the movie a little more, but hey, he's in there a little bit. Finn, who is a rogue stormtrooper who left because he was sick of the First Order's war crimes. And of course you have Rey, who is a scavenger on the desert planet of Jakku, who technically acts as the really main protagonist in this movie, unless you want to debate it's both Rey and Finn. Of course there are the new villains, who are more or less mirrors of the villains in the original trilogy, such as Captain Phasma, who reminds me of Boba Fett because she's a silent, evil character who looks pretty awesome. She's kind of a silent character, I guess you could say, but I wish she was in the movie more. She might make a bigger appearance in the future movies, but yeah, she's in there for a few scenes and she's pretty awesome. Kylo Ren, who a lot of people think is either awesome or lame. Personally, I think he's awesome. I think he's a character who's in development, more or less. We're going to see him evolve into a more cooler character. General Hux, who he's in there for a fair amount of time, but he's pretty damn intimidating. I would say he's kind of like the competitor to Kylo Ren. He wants to impress Supreme Leader Snoke, who is a pretty mysterious character in this movie. I'd say he's pretty cool. I don't know if he's as cool as the Emperor, but hey. The visual effects and the soundtrack for The Force Awakens are both amazing. The visual effects look realistic. It's all real models, the vehicles, armor, weapons, everything actually looks like it's there. When you see an alien, it actually looks real. Of course, some of it is CGI. There's a bit of CGI enhancements, and some things are completely CGI, but for the most part, real props, real landmarks, everything is authentic. It looks great. It's kind of like the original trilogy, because that's all they really had back then. And granted, a lot of people dislike the prequels because it felt fake and there was CGI, but for the most part, a lot of that was actually props as well. But nonetheless, there is a lot of authentic movie-making production in this movie, with a little bit of CGI sprinkled on there. And when it comes to the soundtrack, John Williams and his crew did a fantastic job. There's some old tunes in this movie, but of course there's a lot of new stuff as well, like the Resistance theme, and of course there's Kylo Ren's theme, which is not as memorable as Vader's theme, but I really liked it. So John Williams still has it. I enjoy the prequel music, and I can't wait to see what else he has to offer in the future movies of Star Wars. Overall, a general complaint about The Force Awakens, despite being more or less accepted by the majority of the audience, is that a lot of people dislike the fact that it caters a little too much to the old school fan base, Like, sure, there's an Easter egg every once in a while, but the general plot of the Star Killer base and the characters and all that stuff feels like it's trying to rip off A New Hope and the original trilogy too much. Personally, I agree. There's some aspects that are kind of a little less than unoriginal or less than original, but for the most part, I think that the majority of it is original, new characters, stuff like that. Maybe I'm a little biased when I say this because I'm a huge Star Wars fanboy and it's literally a religious thing for me, but I really like this movie. I think it's a 10 out of 10, even though I don't really like to give number scores. I like the characters, the brand new characters and the old characters. I like the plot, even though it's a little less than original. And BB-8, which I didn't talk about in the character section, he's pretty cool. He's kind of like R2 because he's kind of like goofy, kind of droid character who can't really talk in English. For the most part, this movie is a pretty damn good Star Wars movie and an overall fantastic movie. Now, I know that I didn't really go into a whole lot of specifics in this review, but that's made more for a overview kind of video. I might do that to go into all the specifics. It's just, you really can't explain this whole movie in such a short video, so this is just the rundown. So overall, everything you could possibly want from a Star Wars movie is in this movie. It reintroduces you to the brand new, well, it introduces you to Star Wars if you're a new fan, and it really brings you back if you haven't watched it in a while. It's a standalone film, essentially. Like, there will be sequels, but you could watch this alone and be satisfied. For the most part, it includes new stuff and old stuff and blends it perfectly. In my personal opinion, this is a perfect movie, in my personal opinion. This has been Riley playing Wookie Cookie. I'll catch you guys next time.